Your show will go live in 5 seconds. Four, three, two, one. Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another show and Happy New Year's for the people that's out there. Anyhow, right now I see we have one person here. I appreciate him being here. I'm sure there'll be more along here shortly. Now we got four. It didn't take long. But anyhow, I've been touching TFL for a lot of years now. And I've talked about a lot of stuff. Social conditioning machine, the programming. How come genders act the way they act in today's society? Where it came from. Anybody that's followed me for these years knows this stuff. But the one spot I have never been able to cover that I've always wanted to cover was the opposite gender. How they're affected by the programming in society. Why they act the way they act. Why do women choose who they choose? Why are we, looking at the people we're looking at? How come women choose who they choose and can dump so many men to the side and never give them the time of day? It's all because of the programming. And that's what most people don't understand. And, I've had people say, well, over the years, TFLers will say, women cannot live TFL. They can't live true force loneliness because they're the ones creating true force loneliness. Now, we all understand that, yes, the women are the ones creating the true force loneliness, but they're not creating it deliberately in no ways or means. Matter of fact, most of the women don't even know they are when they are because they don't realize they are. And you have society to blame for that. You have social conditioning machine to blame for that. And the women are just as much a victim, as I've always said this, as the men are. But it's like I told you before, take a pole and put men on one side of that pole and women on the other side of that pole. And the programming has been passed down onto us by the powers to be for centuries and centuries now has dictated the women's roles in life and the men's. And so it's been essential to get a woman who is awake, understands what's going on, and lived it. And lived life herself that can see what's going on. I didn't know that would ever happen, but guess what? It happened. And I'm very proud to introduce Hannah. Welcome to the show.
Hi, g'day. How you doing?
I'm doing good. And so as I promised, or as I told you, I found a woman that is going to become part of this show now, so you might want to get used to it. Yes, there's a female in the dating scene topic for men now. So get used to it. She's here. So Anna, you want to tell them just a little bit about yourself, whatever you're comfortable with.
Sure, I will, Bill. First up, I will explain that I watched your show a few times and understood very quickly that there's a lot of wounded men there. And my intention is not to create or add to any of that wounding. I've got my own wounds that I'm tending. And my true force loneliness was a choice. And it was a choice because I needed to take a step back to look at some of the situations that I kept putting myself through. And have a look at my own programming, if you like. And I wasn't really aware of the cultural Marxism and the social conditioning that was part of that. But very briefly, I'm Australian, obviously, with American citizenship. I came over here because I met somebody and I married them. That particular person was a Native American, and I was very in love with the culture and very in love with the spiritual philosophy. and very in love with the gentleman, of course. Didn't mean to put him last. He was obviously a big part of the whole experience. But very quickly I learned, I mean, the day that we got married, the name that he gave me was not his real name. So I didn't find out till the day we were running around getting the paperwork, and I found out, I'm like, what's this surname here? And he goes, oh, well, that's my real name. And I said, but you told me it was something else. And so we got through that, and then the honeymoon night, he was on talking to a girl in Canada. But part of my conditioning is I have parents who've been married for 60 years, and my conditioning was that you stick things out, you try and make the best of things, and that's what I did. And for the next 2 years, I came to understand that this particular individual, and I need to be cautious because these people are still living. And my intention is not to be running these people down. This is just from my perception and from my experience. But my perception of that experience was that it was very dangerous for me. This individual could become physically violent, was very emotionally unstable, and I believe I was living with what we know is a psychopath. And I used to have a big mouth, and I used to be quite hysterical and histrionic, and I would react to certain things that he would say or certain threats that he would make to me. And I learned very quickly that this particular person enjoyed my reactions, enjoyed in a kind of sadistic way those reactions that I gave him. So I learned to shut up. I learned to keep my mouth shut to stay safe, basically. And I did. I still stuck it out because I was codependent enough to believe that with my love, I could affect a change. And I think that's part of a big part of my programming right there. I can tell you that I'm the eldest of 4 children, and there was a son who was born before me. He was a cot death, or you call it SID syndrome over here. And in those days, my parents were not really given a chance to grieve that death, and they were told that they needed to have a baby straight away, and it was me. And my mother is pretty honest. She told me that she was too frightened to pick me up as a baby without holding a mirror in front of my face to see if I was breathing. She was so scared. So consequently, I was very overprotected as a child. And somewhere I got that message that kind of overprotectiveness equals love. And so I've unconsciously sought out partners who were quite possessive and overly protective because I equated that with love. And that's my programming right there, Bill.
Yes, and have you look at your the comments on the board here, you've already got TFL from Toronto, Forced Loneliness, has already asked him some questions, so go ahead and read
Sure.
them.
Oops, the sound's dropped out.
Sounds dropped out. I hear you just fine.
Or were you just pausing, were you?
I was pausing for you, yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a chance to read the comments he's asked you, and then
I'm trying to, I'm not seeing comments on my screen, so I'm obviously in the wrong screen, aren't I? Could you read a couple of the questions to me?
Okay, well, he's asked you when I was a teen, I had friends, male and female, but they cut me off because I was, intolerable.
He was intolerant. Oh,
Yeah,
he was intolerable. The women were.
Intolerated, or whatever you want to call it. It's INTOVERTED. Introverted. Then he goes on. Yeah,
so he was
introverted, yes. And then he goes on and says, why would you choose TFL, Anna?
Why would I choose True Force Loneliness? Yes. Because I kept going from one bad disaster to another. These were my choices. I take full responsibility for it. And I've experienced huge financial loss. I've been wiped out. I've been homeless. And these were just like really bad choices. And I had to stop and take a step back and look at what I kept what it kept attracting to me. Um, so I chose to be lonely because I needed to look at me. Um, I think I put myself up on one of those, those online dating sites or whatever, and I was telling Bill just earlier, it's like I felt weird because, I'm getting likes and comments and all of that, and that can be good for your ego, but it's not my ego that really needed feeding. If I want to base my life on whether people like me or not, on what I look like and all of that, then it's not real for me. And then I felt really cheesy going through pictures of men like I'm in a supermarket and I'm looking at it just didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like the right way to meet someone for me.
Yes, and
So
Aaron's asking you a call question here, so I'll get to him real quick, okay?
okay, yeah, and you know
Okay.
what it is? I haven't signed into the chat.
That may be what it is, okay, because you're
Yeah.
not seeing the chat that's being typed, or it's a
Yep.
matter of refreshing it, but it says, where are you getting it? Where are you going after the bad boys? He wants to know where you're going after the bad boys.
Was I going after the bad boys? Yeah, sometimes I used to think that I was, and then I started thinking, well, a lot of these men sought me out, so they were going for the good girl, maybe, a bit of both. I think that my conditioning, I was never one who was into romance fiction, except maybe when I was a teenager. And those Lifetime movies that Bill talks about, which I think are kind of like, that's pornography for women, really, because it's not real. You always have a bad guy in the drama and then some rescuer who comes in to save her. She's not ever kind of responsible. But I'm just going on a generalization there. But I I think women are attracted to drama, certain amount of drama, because you see that in all of the like romance fictions and the TV shows that are part of our conditioning and programming. And so it's all very passionate and, dramatic, and that's equates romance somehow. That's for me. I'm only speaking for me. I'm not atypical. I'm not speaking for all women. So that's what I think I went for.
Yes, I wish he was in the chat because if he's already with you, he's glad that you answered him honestly.
Right. I'm on the wrong TFL. I'm in now, but now I'm on the wrong TFL thing. Hang on, I'm coming in. I'm coming in.
She's trying to get there. This is new to her. But I'll tell you this while she's looking to try to find the right chat box or the
Right.
right show page. Okay. I sent you
Right.
the link once, and you might be able to go back and click on that. I don't know if you
Okay,
can or
yeah, you
not.
did. I'll try it again.
So, because it might just have to refresh itself on your side. But I'm
Right,
going to say
hang on.
this. I've had an extensive talk with her before she ever came here. I just didn't bring her on this show randomly. So that you guys know that right off the bat. She was not just brought here randomly. She's quite awake to what's going on in this world, and she's waking up more every day. Okay, which you don't find many women that are, and she is. Okay, she's honest, and she'll be the first one to tell you up front because of the social conditioning machine and the programming she received in her life and wanting to fit in with her friends in her circle in her life, wanting to fit in and wanting to be normal, seen as normal. She done the same thing as every woman does with their programming, and I'm sure she has her good percent of guys that she returned down in 1 to 5 seconds, just like we all see happen. And she will tell you she has done that. She didn't see what was going on. She always figured herself, me speaking for her, she can confirm this, but she always figured herself that when she rejected a guy, it was no big deal because there was another woman out there for him.
I found it now, and just to let everyone know, I'm under the name Louise Fox. That's actually not my name. My name's Annie. I'm using Louise Fox. That's because that's my middle name, Louise. My grandmother's name is Fox, so that's my little alias. But I'm Annie. Okay, got a couple of questions there. Why would you move from Australia to America to meet a husband? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so what happened was my parents are British, and they went back. My mother did a geographical. She got very sick. She had a breakdown, and they all decided they were going back to England to live. And so we went back when I was 16 years old, and I stayed there for 2 years. And I did meet a very, very bad boy there. My very first sexual experience, and I was raised Catholic, and I basically manipulated until I, got that man to marry me, which he did. He followed me out to Australia, and we married there, and I was 18 years old. He was 19. And when I say he was a bad boy, it was in the days of David Bowie. He had dyed red hair, and he had a motorbike, and I thought he was like, yeah, he was really bad. Here's somebody I can, with my love, I can affect a change in this person's life, all of that sick stuff. And he drove when I say he drove a motorcycle, he drove a 50cc Yamaha, which for me, who lived this really kind of protected life at a Catholic school in Australia, I thought that was really a big deal. And that marriage didn't last. It went till I was divorced when I was 21, and basically alcohol played a huge part. He was also a huge pothead, and there was a lot of differences between us. We were way too young. We have since talked online years later, and he's remarried, and he's very happy, and bears me no ill will, and I bear him no ill will. We both had to learn from each other, and it was a tough lesson. And then I didn't get married, until I was 42, and that was the American guy. And I tell you why. I've always been attracted to the outsider because my parents were English immigrants in Australia, so I was always attracted to the outsider, the someone from another culture. And prior to having met the Native American, I had been taken to Arnhem Land, Australia, which is Aboriginal Australia, and I spent time with an Aboriginal community, and I was adopted in, and it changed my life. Completely changed my life because of their spiritual outlook and how they applied it to their everyday world. And so I met this Native American through that community online. There's a stupid thing. And so he invites me to America, and of course I go running off to America, and we have the big red hot romance for about 3 months, red flags flying all over the place. I didn't listen. I just did what I did, because it was a romance full of drama and passion. And there you go. And I got my karmic. I don't think I deserved what I received. I love myself enough to say that, but I certainly, whatever I've done wrong in my life, I've paid for it.
Well, that's just it, I found her to be a great inspiration because the facts are the facts. Just like men, just like women, we're all human beings. And we've been conditioned, we've been programmed our whole lives, and we've been divided deliberately. Gender roles played a great deal with dividing us all. Gender roles had a lot to do with that. And then the norms in society. I mean, you wonder why people go by looks. You know how many times TFLers talk about looks, looks, looks. Okay? Well, looks is another thing that was conditioned, programmed. You don't think it is, but it is. Because everything's done in baby steps. You think about it, from the time you was a little baby, you was born, you brought home. Everything you ever learned or you seen came from mostly your television set, books, and magazines, and your school system. So what was considered to be good looking, what was considered to be average, and what was considered to be ugly was put in your face your entire life. Now, she's no different than any other human being. We all grew up in the same world with the same conditioning put in our faces. The only difference is she was given a different set of programming when it came to what she was responsible for in life and what her roles was than what we was. We was told a whole different story. So the roles was completely designed for men, that they're the caretaker, the breadwinner, they're the protector, the provider and the protector, and that men was the ones that had to go out and do the impressing of the women. Okay, and then the women, of course, they're no different than anybody else. They grew up with their roles that they were told that they were going to, and then you have the fashion, the modeling industry, and everything that's been put in everybody's face. Well, nobody wants the ugly car, right? As Lexi would have said years ago when she was talking to me, she says, well, the dating scene's a lot like shopping for a car. Nobody wants the ugly car. Well, when she's running in her clique of friends when she was growing up, the only thing that mattered at that time to all of us, not just her, was that we fit in with our friends and our environment. We don't want to be ostracized, outcasted, made fun of, called names. So we all strive to fit in. And part of that, of course, is going to lead to the decisions she's made in her life, for the choices she made for the guys. So I'll let her pick up from here.
Yeah, I am just reading Toronto Forced Loneliness. G'day, mate. You're saying I was after the bad boy at age 18 as much. Yeah, yeah. I don't approve of it now. I look back either, but that's what I did. And it was the 80s. Yeah, do you remember that movie? What was that stupid movie? Grease. That was all a big thing. And I think that, that I remember hitting the dance floor with those stupid skinny pants and the fluffy hairdo and all of that. um, all of the things, that I had been taught were attractive, were the kinds of things that I guess I went for. I would like to think I'm above that, but no, I'm not. Asperger's, right. Well, Asperger's has its own gifts, though, right? Definitely has its own gifts, and for me personally, I kind of think that you you need to find a woman who has incredible insight and a similar gift as well, but how we find these people, I don't know. I don't know. Most people nowadays, whether it be male or female, are getting into relationships with only one intent, and that is to get a quick fix by sticking their genitals into each other and moving on to the next. Yes, yes, yes. We have been definitely sexualized. And we were talking about that earlier, Bill and I, as well. The idea that, I don't know if you've ever been through, or I have witnessed in certain recovery groups that people will eliminate whatever drug or eliminate whatever alcohol or gambling or whatever it is they're addicted to. They remove that addiction, and then bang, the go-to drug is sex. And they are in a forced sense of intimacy, or fake sense of intimacy, because they're sharing each other's lives and all of the terrible things they did while they were on drugs or alcohol or whatever. All of a sudden they're attracted to somebody, they want to feel good, and sex is the next go-to drug. And what happens is you have an increase in, what is it? Not serotonin. There's some chemical in the brain that's an addictive chemical, so you can actually become sexually addicted too. But isn't it sad that we've come to that we just look at each other as, you're supposed to make me happy and I'm supposed to make you happy instantly, and then, okay, now I'm not feeling so happy, so I'm on to the next person. We use each other as drugs.
That's it. That's exactly it. And that's the world we're seeing right now. And you had to really look hard at that. That's not no mistake. That's not no accident. I can go back to when I was a kid, and I can think about when I first hit teen and puberty. You was lucky to find one adult bookstore for miles where I lived.
Right.
And sex wasn't on the TV set. It wasn't pushed. It was basically hidden. Not that the problems wasn't still there, but you didn't have society wasn't over sexed. Okay?
Yeah.
We still
Yeah.
had the breakdown because they were busy dividing the genders and breaking up the family unit through
Yeah.
the programming, but they do everything in baby steps. So let's get escalated through the years. Now, when you look around you, what do you have? Sex has replaced love. You got pornography all over the internet for absolutely free, which means children are now looking at pornography, whether you want to believe it or not, they are. Okay?
Right.
So everybody's becoming, well, they've replaced love with sex. Real love does exist. But you know, Ron, we talked about this, or we talked about this already, that when it comes to real love, it does exist.
I agree.
But
It does exist. It absolutely does. And for whatever reason, we're like, we just ended up shipwrecks, I guess.
well, yeah, see, that's just it. This is what I've talked about for years because the truth is the female doesn't want anything to do with the nice guy. All of you guys in this chat right now, you know that already. If you're the nice guy, you come in last. Okay? You know
Yeah.
this. Then you
I
also
just want to
go ahead.
quickly, sorry to interrupt you, Bill. I just wanted to apologise to Toronto Team Force Loneliness from Canada and just say very quickly, I said, well, he needed to find or whatever. No, my role is not to give advice and not to tell anybody what they need. I'm sorry about that. And then Jew skillful.
He's been following me for years. He's been here for years.
Yeah, he's saying, I fail to see how women don't feel uncomfortable dating bad boys, knowing they are no good, and that their so-called strength that the bad boy supposedly possesses can be turned against her. Absolutely agree. I don't even know what to say to that because I fell into that trap. I'm one of those people that I was programmed that way to see those things as attractive, those qualities as attractive when they're absolutely not. Being nice is what comes naturally to me. I treat people the way they want to be treated, and I just can't understand how a female who would be nice to me date a drug dealer. Yeah, drug dealer. Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you. And Sim says there's truly a feminist agenda at play, and the masculine and feminine energies are suppressed by design to retard the population growth. Dating these days is insufferable. I agree with you there. I agree with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we have Warren with us now. Okay, so I'm going to bring Warren in.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know, and we'll go on. There's going to be a lot of questions thrown at Ann tonight. Okay, so just be respectful because if you're not respectful towards her, I will remove you, and I don't want to have to do that. Okay. Just so you understand, this is not about being
It's like I'm not. I understand that people are wounded, and I understand that people are angry, and I'm just telling you, I don't represent all women, and I'm really sorry you guys got hurt. I got hurt too.
Yeah, she's been hurt herself, and then you have the situation like I told you. The majority of all of this is programming that's done this, and she's made her choices in life that she can't take back now. But she done it based on everything around her. Her choices came from what was around in her life. It didn't come deliberately to hurt somebody. But with that being said, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Warren.
Hey, Bill, how you doing? What were y'all discussing? What did I miss?
Well, we can't go backwards, you missed a lot.
G'day, Warren. I'm Annie, and I've just been introduced to your show, and I'm just giving it my little female perspective, but I don't represent all women. Okay, I'm just here for me.
Yeah, okay.
Hopefully to be helpful.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, don't everybody talk at once now,
There's a lot of disrespect going on now.
Well, it ain't so much disrespect. It's the fact that, yes, she's turned guys down, I'm sure, in 1 to 5 seconds in her life when she was younger. She was busy fitting in with the rest of the females. She wasn't about to, not fit in. I mean, but you got to remember, this is all, the 90% of everything we've ever gone through has been programming to begin with. And, and so she's done what she's done, but she's woke up, she sees, and she can't take back the mistakes she's made. It's no different than the rest of the guys out here. You go through life, and when you grow up as a baby up to a little toddler on up, you follow the flow of the rest of the people, and that's what the majority of the people do.
I'll throw a little spanner in here. The question, which is a good question, why do women go for the bad guys and the good guys kind of get left behind? It's kind of, you can almost say too, because I know a lot of good women out there, whose husbands have left them for the young, pretty young thing, and then they're left high and dry and feeling really bitter. And so, it kind of works both ways. The men that I've known, a lot of them, not all of them, tend to go for the look, the pretty young thing and the sexy young.
Yeah. Well, what I've noticed, and this is just what I've noticed, is that generally speaking, men are willing more than likely to date down, whereas women aren't unless you got a lot of money. I mean, you know.
I used to work in a bar. I'm sorry, Warren. I used to work in a bar.
That's what I've noticed. I mean, men aren't as visual, in some ways, I don't think, as women are. I mean, because men are willing, because it's more out of desperation. I mean, I'm not saying it's to blame it on women, but I'm just being honest here. I mean, really, relationships and stuff are generally in women's court. I mean, they're the ones that do the choosing.
True. We've designed it so that men do the hard work of the initiating and the asking on the date and all of that, and have to put themselves in the position of facing rejection. And then women are the ones who we get to choose like it's a supermarket or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I do think that there are occasional women who probably do live with it, but I think there's gonna be a lot more men. I think that for a man, you don't have to be average looking or lower, and not have like a Goldman Sachs bank account. In order to be put in that bracket. Whereas a woman, generally speaking, they have to be like a lot less physically attractive. Like she's a burn victim or she's got like some sort of major deformity or something like that.
Right. I worked as a bartender, and I remember watching the dance at the bar. The men that would come in that had gone, and they would tell me their stories. And because I was I wasn't the bartender. I was an Australian. I didn't know you were supposed to get all dressed up and sexy and all that behind the bar. So they would just tell me their stories. And a lot of them had gone through a divorce and lost kids and houses and all that. But they would come in wearing these fancy watches, and then they would be telling women how much they earned and all of this stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing? But then the women were just as bad. They're coming in and they're pumping up their cleavage and sucking in their stomach and putting all their makeup on. And it's like, I was watching this bizarre ritual take place where no one was being real with each other,
Yeah. Well, that's what I came to realize too, man. Men and women alike across our society, the majority of people out there today are so superficial and fake and shallow. And I don't mean that to sound like I'm being nihilistic. It's just what I came to realize the hard way. That is the truth. We live in a very shallow and superficial society, and that's what you see reflected in, the dating scene and all of that. Well, you got to think too. That's going to have wider political implications. Because you got to think, people take relationships as some trivial thing, like some high school thing. That's not the case at all, because that's the foundation of human societies. That's the foundation of building families, which leads to societies and communities. And when the dating market is so corrupted like this, what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on us? You look at how dead the family unit is today.
Yeah. It's done by design.
It's built on a foundation of quicksand.
It is.
You tell people that this house is built on a foundation of quicksand, is going to sink, they call you a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Right, they've called me a tinfoil hat too, so it's an easy way to dismiss that.
Yeah.
Well,
and I agree with you with what you're saying about how much more superficial we are becoming as a society, and I think that might be the downfall of the internet and social media. There are good things about it, but that's the downfall of it. That we're all you only have to go on Facebook and see how many people are putting up photoshopped selfies and pictures of their breakfast, and it's like, please, is that what? I don't know.
Well,
it's gotten to the point because people in general. I'm not saying that you don't have people here in America that have had hardships and stuff like that. I mean, of course, but relative to like some of these people in some of these poor countries, we got it pretty good, right? Now you got people here in America who are so pampered, yet the victim culture all the time. And it's not even just for women. This goes for other brackets too. This goes for like, the whole social justice warrior shit you see going off everywhere right now. And it's gotten to a point where people are reduced to complaining about stupid shit like fucking okay hand signs and fucking peanut butter sandwiches to prove how quote unquote oppressed they are. They're sitting in their fucking living room typing on their computer and all this other shit that people who are really underprivileged don't even have access to. But I mean, I could go on.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. It's like they're trying to make a Hegelian dialect out of whether you like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. That's where we have got. Yeah. And that's not just America. That's I got friends in England. I got friends in Australia. It's happening all over. And I've got friends in Africa. And I'm watching these kids in Africa. And they're all about trying to get a cell phone and, their cell phone. And just, okay.
Well, listen to this. And you get people so brainwashed to believe in their government that despite the same exact thing happening in all Western nations at the exact same time, but what's the odds of that happening by pure coincidence?
Right, yeah.
Not very likely, right?
Right.
And despite all of this, people still want to sit there and say, but we're conspiracy theorists. Yet they're screaming about communism taking over. Now, a communist coup would be what? The textbook definition of conspiracy, right? But yet we're still conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, now hold on, Warren. I want Ann to look at the comments.
Yeah, I've been reading as Warren was talking.
Right, and I want you to go ahead and answer some of these questions for them so they hear it from you.
Yeah. So what is it?
So let her answer the comments that she's seeing.
Okay, and Warren, help me out here if I get. Yeah, so my ex-wife was the biggest pathological liar. This is from NSTX -5, I think. My ex-wife was the biggest pathological liar and took her lies to the grave with her, so no closure was ever truly obtained. Truth isn't valued either. I can tell you from experience, I lived with a psychopath. There is no closure. And if you were living with a woman who suffered from antisocial personality disorder, I'm really sorry to say that that's probably as much closure as you're going to get, because these people will deny the truth, and they have a way of gaslighting you and twisting things. You feel like you're going insane with that stuff, and then the worst part is not being believed when you try to tell someone your story. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Warren.
You go ahead. I thought you were done. You can go ahead.
I
didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm done. No, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, I just want to add that this doesn't even have to be like necessarily a romantic relationship type thing. It could even be like, two heterosexual men, who are like friends or whatnot, or heterosexual women, whatever. I mean, but sometimes, man, toxic people will come into your life, and some of them even mean well, but for whatever reason, a lot of times they're just problematic. Even if they don't, I mean, some of them don't even mean to be. Some of them mean to be good people, but what I've learned is sometimes, man, it's not always easy to do. I mean, but sometimes you got to cut people off.
Right, and
I mean, there are times where you just have to. You have to, even when it's hard to do. I mean, even if you feel bad about doing it, there are times when you just have to cut certain people out of your life. You have to cut them off.
And here's the thing, too, is if you are in a toxic relationship and you have been conditioned and programmed as I was to believe that you stick it out no matter what, you could end up, getting very ill in a relationship with a toxic person, and it's hard to identify. You have to look at your own programming, and then you have to look at the person really honestly and go, is this a healthy person that I'm with? And am I healthy? Am I healthy for going along? If I'm being abused, when in the situation I was in, a healthy woman would not have stayed. I was not healthy, and I don't think a healthy man would
What
have
exactly
stayed.
was your situation? I mean, if I may ask.
Sure. Sorry, what was that again?
What was your situation?
I
if I
came
may ask,
over
I mean, if not, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. I'm just asking. But what was your situation? What happened with your situation?
my situation, I came to America to marry a Native American gentleman and loved the culture and loved the Native American people. But the particular individual I was with was what I learned after about 2 years, or before 2 years, was that he was had an antisocial personality disorder. And the more that I would react, and I tended to be quite dramatic and histrionic, and I learned how to shut up, because the more that I reacted, the more I would see a smile coming on his face. So he actually was feeding off these reactions. Um, and then when I left, I got stalked. Um, he sent stalkers by proxy. He sent people from his tribe to come to let me know that he knew where I was, and things like it was awful. But I don't abscond my responsibility, and I chose that relationship, and I chose it because I had all of these romantic notions of what it would be like to live with a culture that I really admired and thought of as very spiritual. And I wasn't being realistic about what that people had been through. I came in with the little Western girl dances with wolves thing in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah. So that.
I mean, I don't mean this as any knock against like Native Americans. I think there are some great Native Americans out there, but it's weird how in our culture we mystify them as if they're like these morally superior spiritual beings.
Absolutely.
And look, they're no better or worse than anyone else. I mean, even prior to the white man showing up, there were some tribes that were conquering other tribes. Some tribes were peaceful and were great tribes. Other tribes were warlike and tyrannical.
Right.
They're no different than any other people on the earth.
I objectified that culture, through the mythology that I had been fed through movies and books and the New Age movement and everything else, So, yeah,
That's an
I learned. And then Warren, just earlier, someone asked me, well, why did I reject Australian men and go all the way to America? And part of my conditioning is, my parents were British who had immigrated to Australia, so I automatically always went for the outsider or someone from another culture. That was I grew up in that kind of mindset of family who always taught me, that we're English, we're not Australian. I didn't know what I was.
That's something I would like to probe about too, man. I would like to have a discussion, because I thought that was rather interesting. Because you hear people all through like the TFL sphere, what I'm talking about, how they think their race is such a major part of them being TFL, and I don't see that. I don't see it, because I see TFLers of all races, and I see men who are successful women of all races. But what I do see is this. Let me explain this. What I do see is this. There seems to be a growing out group preference among women of all races, where like white women are dating like black and brown men, brown and Asian women are dating white men. Everybody's like, women are generally dating outside of their race.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That would be kind of
but not that I have a problem with interracial dating. I don't. That's not the issue. I was just recognizing patterns.
Yeah, it's an interesting social development. Yeah.
Well, it is. I've seen what Warren's talking about. I found something else interesting. This person left a comment concerning what you was just talking about. He says my ex was one half Cherokee and abused witchcraft. Native culture was fascinating aspect of it.
Oh, where's that one?
It's right down here towards the bottom of this chat by 6men3.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Abused witchcraft. Native culture was a fascinating aspect of it. Okay. You mean fascinating for you, 9-6, or she was fascinated with the subject, or did you find her fascinating because of that? Okay. Might take a minute to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's that thing where, but that was true of me, definitely fascinated with the other.
yeah, I'm sure he'll answer here in a minute. I mean, we got to remember
Sure,
we
sure.
lag, but I don't know, 40 seconds
Yeah.
or so before they hear what we just said. So,
And Toronto says I sound like an
I find all
anti-feminist.
I find all cultures fascinating, man. I mean, I've studied history all over the world because what you find out, you see the same, especially once you get into the occult behind it. You notice that a lot of the same symbolism, a lot of the same tenements keep showing up throughout time, throughout culture. I mean, you talk about ancient cultures that have supposedly had no contact with one another, live on completely opposite sides of the world, that somehow are sharing the same occult concepts. And you see the same old patterns in history from nation after nation, empire after empire, all over the place down through history.
Yeah, now you're really getting into something. Yeah, and I was fascinated with that too. How red, black, yellow, white, always the same four colors, meaning pretty much the same four directions in cultures halfway across the planet from each other. Yeah, that sort of stuff I really was interested in. Still am. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I'm just going to respond to someone said something. I always expected a 40-year-old, a 40-year female virgin who never had a date in her life. I was expected, 40. Oh, you were expecting that, Toronto,
yeah, I
or
love you. He said that. Now he thinks that maybe you're
I'm a
anti-feminist.
virgin.
Yeah, right.
He messing with me.
Now, he was hoping it'd be a TFL woman who was 40 years old and never been there.
Oh, that's what he was hoping for.
I do believe. And I think he thinks you're an anti-feminist. Of course,
Well,
which he said was
I
good.
did. There was a time when I thought I was a feminist and all of that till I found out Gloria Steinem's story and all of that with her with the CIA and where that was leading. And then I listened to that. Oh gosh, way back when the Aaron Russo documentary was the America from Freedom to Fascism and how they manipulated the feminist movement because basically they wanted more money. If we were working, then they could tax men and women. But I always, I grew up. My great grandmother she was Irish, and she worked in the mills since she was 11 years old. And see, the thing is, for the working class, we never had a choice as to whether to stay home or go to work. I mean, so feminism to me was always something that was a very middle class movement anyway. And then I gradually grew away from it when I started to understand how it was being manipulated. I basically always just thought it was, equal pay for an equal job, equal opportunity. That's how I viewed it. But it's gone into a whole different area now, a whole different thing. And I'm really sad to see the suffering that I see that men on here, particularly, in the last few weeks that I've been watching this, that, what men have been going through as a result of it. It's just awful for men and women. I don't think women are really aware of how they're being manipulated. Not the majority of women.
No, you're right. You're correct
Well, I
about that.
think that too. I mean, yes, one of the things you got to bear in mind is that one, as far as this attack on masculinity, men did enable it by allowing this kind of stuff, by enable. I mean, so. But at the same time, I mean, there are, I forgot what I was going to. I lost my damn train of thought. I'm about half baked.
Yeah.
There's something I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, go ahead.
I'll respond real quick while you're we're gathering that thought together, Warren, to 9SXMMIN3, who was saying that he found the culture fascinating. And I think that is the thing, we romanticize and then we have these expectations. And of course, another human being can never fulfill these, expectations we have if we've been programmed. And I'm wondering what kind of programming you might have been fed regarding Native American culture. Or I see a lot of men in Asia. I lived in Asia for a year, and I ran a club there. And I used to watch these men. The women over there absolutely drop dead gorgeous, beautiful women. But the men would be chasing after these Asian women, and then you see them, they get married, And the women have an expression over there called "feed it to the ducks." I won't have to tell you what
Yeah,
it
well,
is.
I was getting at, and I'm sorry, but yeah, this is what I've noticed. Also, you got to think is 2/3 of the propaganda that's being pumped out. And see, we live in a society. It's been said there's enough propaganda in our society to make Stalin blush in today's
Yes,
society.
yeah, you
Based
are
upon the
right.
technology and rise and shit like that. No, bear this in mind. Let me finish my point here real quick. I'll get the mic back to you, but I just want to finish making my point. Bear this in mind. 2/3 of the propaganda is being aimed at women. That means the psychologically, as far as the propaganda goes, they've got like a lot more propaganda aimed at them than we do us guys, because they use the women to keep the men in line. That's how the propaganda machine works. You know.
Yep. And this I'll go into for example, the Asian propaganda thing. Okay, so the women over there, and I'm generalizing, right? But the men would marry these women that they would lust after, get married, and then all of a sudden they have these women have brothers, right? All of a sudden they're in this family, and you see the men in the beginning of the relationship. The women would be trotting behind them. Then at the end of the relationship, these men are following the women with the children, and they're kind of stuck, because the women call the shots over there. And what was interesting when I was there, the Asian men had this expectation of me because I was a Westerner. And so they all thought, I'm the biggest floozy on earth. And based on what they had been fed about, from what came through from the Western culture is, that we're all like Beyonce, or it's like, and we're all loose. And that's their programming. So they wouldn't touch their women. They wouldn't approach their women. I'm making it really possessive, and I'm generalizing.
What you got to bear in mind too is the attack on men is bigger than feminism. It's more about gynocentrism, period. Because there's other forms of gynocentrism. Like if you look at like say a lot of places in alt-right, say for example, where they promote traditional conservatism. A lot of that too is anti-male. It's pretty much just right-wing feminism. We're still all about where the man's got to do all the hard work and the grind, and the man's got to be a disposable utility and take care of something. I mean, we're all the way to still put on the man. Our culture, propaganda, pretty much all cultures for the most part, with the exception of maybe, and I'd say maybe some cultures in the Middle East. I'm not really that familiar. I don't have that much experience with dealing with Middle Easterners or Muslims. With that possible exception, most of civilization generally, like the way the propaganda machine works, is it's going to be gynocentric because that's the engine for selling propaganda.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the Middle Eastern cultures either, but I will tell you that I always thought it was amusing that we've got one half of the world with plastic boobs and tiny little bikinis running around and bunny ears on their head, and the other half of the world are dressed up like Casper the Friendly Ghost, and they're both saying they feel liberated. It's just just me. That's just me.
Why do women friend zone men?
Why do women what?
Friend zone men. Now remember what I talked to you about women don't want to just be friends?
Right.
Okay, but what they don't understand here is the women are just as messed up as the men. Because if you're ever going to have a successful relationship, the foundation is you have to be able to be friends first. So when the woman tells you you're just a friend and don't go any further and runs after the bad boy, it's because she's following the programming.
Yeah, she is.
You're building it's like what Warren said when he came into the show. You're building a foundation on quicksand or on fault line. It's getting ready to go off, and then you can't figure out why the relationship don't work. See, this is why women that he's talking about put guys in a friend zone, because they're going with the programming, the social conditioning. They don't even know that what they're doing is wrong, and they'll never have a successful relationship because they don't know what they're doing. They're just as messed up as the men.
From my observation, what happens to a lot of these young women, these women are like really the hot and popular girls when they're in high school, or even if they're just average. I mean, hell, they're still pretty much a celebrity in today's society. But, what happens is once they hit their 30s or 40s, once they hit post-wall, and, all their bad boys don't want to have nothing to do with them anymore. And it's getting to a point now where a lot of nice guys don't want to have anything to do with them anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is a lot of them end up bitter and alone with a house full of cats.
Wow. Yeah. I have two nieces, and one is, I think she's 17, one's 21, and I'm watching them on like Facebook, and you can really see the programming at work, and it's tougher, I think, for this generation because we didn't have social media when I was growing up. Thank God, but they, because they're getting bullied, they're sexting, and then someone's gonna, threatening to publish a nude photo of so and so, and then it's just, and they've got exposure to a lot more, the tools of popularity, like how many likes you have on your Facebook page, is very important for that particular age group and that age bracket. And they all take selfies constantly, and it's all about attracting the other sex. They find a boyfriend or whatever, and then there's he liked somebody else's page, or so it's all it gets ridiculous. And I'm watching it. I'm watching this program take place. Yeah.
It is. It's all programming, and it's happening right in your face. And so, when he brought up the friend zone, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Women friend zone guys because of the programming.
Right. I was lucky in that the particular job that I had, I worked with a lot of men, and I have a lot of respect for these particular men. They were brothers in arms, and we toured a lot together. And so we would be sharing snippets of our lives on these long drives and whatever, and really, really became close, like friends, almost like family. I also knew that these guys had wives and girlfriends, and I was really cautious. If there are certain subjects I think that should only remain between an intimate couple, and so I wouldn't go into those zones. And if I felt that a woman was questioning my intention, I really made it a point to let her know that I was in no way threat to that relationship, and she would become my friend too. And but because of that, because I've kind of been that way, a lot of men don't like that about me, because I do have male friends, and they are just friends, and they've been friends for years and years. But I've found it difficult when I've gone into when I used to date. If I tried to explain that to these people, they would question it and get very uncomfortable around that. So, yeah.
I like Aaron's comments here.
Mm-hmm.
Friend zone is like cataloging, whereas a man has to search for a needle in a haystack. Okay, girls have a grocery store to walk through. Would you like to be okay? Would you like to buy some rubber and nipples?
Yeah.
Why do women friend zone men?
What's interesting too, and I brought this up before, is because I think most people at the propaganda level, whether consciously or subconsciously, sometimes you'll even hear them say things that kind of tell of this. Man, they've been brainwashed to think that they're protecting the gene pool, men and women alike, or they're protecting the gene pool from quote imperfect genes by pushing out mostly guys. But here's the thing, if it's so great for the gene pool for society, to sit there and keep pushing all these people out, well, then why don't you ask Japan how that's working for them? Because Japan is in a crisis now.
Japan is in crisis?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, look up the herbivore movement.
Okay. No, this one's new on me.
What's happened is women aren't getting together anymore, man. There's a lot of this same stuff we have like going on here, and herbivore movement is pretty much like their version of MGTOW. like, where they just walked away from it. And now the government's trying to, come in and give men incentive to want, or give people incentive to want to have sex and make babies and or whatnot, and because people, they're just not having anything to do with each other anymore. I think technology also probably plays some part in that. To be fair, of course now they're building these the sex bot revolution, which is coming out of Japan.
I laughed my head off. There was a meme that they put up about these child sex bots for pedophiles because the rationale was that okay, it's not going to help. It's not going to hurt children. Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, well, okay, well, let's have a pedophile bot so we can show kids what a predator looks like and what their behaviors are like, and let the kids kick the crap out of them at the end of it. No one gets hurt, right? It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my problem with that is you talk about a robot. It's probably far stronger than a normal human being.
That's true too. Yeah, but what the danger is there is, and men are going to fall into that trap, or maybe some women too, the whole sex with a robot thing. They're going to be like a computer. They're going to take down every little like that you have, every dislike you have, and somewhere that information will be used against you. They're like little honey traps. Yeah.
They're like spy bots.
Yeah, that's exactly what they'll be. Yeah. But isn't it sad that we get to the point that we can't? It's a I guess this is it. The technology, like I said, the downside of it is that we're into sound bites, quick grabs, fast conversation, and if this photo doesn't please me, that's it. I'm on to the next person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've not had the guy's experience here, the level of rejection that I'm seeing talked about.
No, well, you remember, Ryan, when we talked that first night. You remember I told you there was a lot of rejection on the guy's side?
Yeah.
And the majority of the women don't even see them doing it. And what women do acknowledge it. Unfortunately, I'm going to tell you something that's very true. And this actually came from a 55-year-old RN, about 9 years ago. She made a statement to me. Don't never let a woman know she's hurt you, because a woman will go out of her way to continue to hurt you over and over and over again because it boosts her ego.
Wow.
Okay? And when you pay attention, there's a lot of women out here, unfortunately, that have actually seen and know the conditioning and the programming, what's happening to men, and they actually get a power trip on it. They get an ego. And they let their ego run wild.
I would like that.
And when they do that, they will go out of their way to destroy a man. But unfortunately, when you have women doing this, it makes it hard for every other guy out there. So what you're seeing here and witnessing is the results of continuous rejection and women who are abusing the power they've been given. Because no man, no woman belongs having power over another. But you can't control what's been done to us, because this is all deliberate. It's programming that's been done to everybody, men and women alike. And when you place,
I would like that drift.
Well, hold on, Warren. If you flip this around and you put men in the position women was with the same programming the other way around, it'd be just as bad. Because power absolutely corrupts. Okay?
Because I think the programming that I'm looking at, that I had to shake, and still, I'm not fully awake. I go through stages, so it's like until I talked to you, Bill, I wasn't aware. I knew about cultural Marxism, but I wasn't fully aware of the extent of the programming that has been used to divide the genders. The way that I've been trained is, and through my experience, but see how the training led me to make the choices that I made, which were bad ones, which led me to a state of complete mistrust. And then you get that mistrust reinforced, which is, men are bad, men are the bad guys, men are, they're only after one thing, blah, 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 all of that, so, yeah, that's the programming that I'm shaking off.
Yeah, so, but this is...
I would like to...
I know, Warren. Go ahead.
It says, Amethyst wrote, Japan is having severe infertility issues due to the 3/11/11 Fukushima nuclear disaster in which 3 reactors had meltdown. Over 100,000 women had abortions after it happened due to deformities. Yeah, but you remember Hiroshima bomb, right? That was probably far more disastrous than that was, and yet they still produced generations after that. I'm not saying I might not have some part in it, man, but you got to think, why is it the Japanese government is trying to offer incentive and financial payments and shit like this for people to get together and have sex and have relationships? I mean, dude, I surely recommend looking into the herbivore movement, what's going on in Japan.
Well, it's not an accident.
I'm not saying that this nuclear shit might not have some part in it, man. I mean, but hell, you know what? Think about this too, man. If you want to go the nuclear route, we got microwave ovens in our kitchen, man. Okay, now that might not be as nuclear as a big nuclear meltdown, but in small increments over a long period of time, you could at some level you could say pretty much most of the Western world has contaminated their DNA with nuclear material because they didn't have a microwave.
Well, you got that, and then you have the other aspect behind it. You have the high population of men that's been wounded, that's hurt through all of this. Women is correct. I mean, I've seen the comments on women. And of course, I will always tell you this does not apply to every single female. You have to look at the programming first, but let's go with the fact that you think it's an accident that they made a doll that was human size with human type feeling skin with the sexual organs to be exact duplicates of a woman, and they were charging $5,000 and there's guys buying them, and now they're making sex robots. Do you think all of that's an accident? No, they're not. No, that's not an accident. They created the division. They knew because they've studied the human mind for years and years and years. They already knew what the women would react and what they would do and what the outcome would be. They gave you phony solutions like PUA, the Pickup Artist Industry, as I've talked about before. They gave you MRA, men's rights activist with Paul Elam, who's replaced by Karen Stroud. Okay, so now the men's movement's run by a female, as you all know. And you'll notice that MRA never looks for the cause, the actual cause. They chase after symptoms. When you bring up the actual cause, they'll dodge it, dart it, and never acknowledge it because they can't, because it's problem, reaction, solution. They're making money off
happened with the MRA? They became the new feminist movement because they have reverted back to the very root that liberal feminism grew out of, which was gynocentric conservatism. That's what I was talking about earlier. And what's happened is there are women out there, we call them chameleons, that pretend to be down with the idea, pretend to be down with the cause, and they're there to infiltrate. They're not really there because they give a fuck about men. They claim to be anti-feminist, but they're not against feminism because they care about men. They're against feminism because feminism has let them down as women. And so there a lot of these types of traditionalist women that are jumping into the MRA's reaction to all this liberalism now. And what's happening is a lot of them have kind of hijacked it. I mean, it's a men's rights movement led by a woman. Think about that.
Yeah.
Talking about Madonna and her pussy hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. That was watching. Dad's watching a program in action.
Yeah. Well, that's really what it is. It's like right wing feminists. If you look at them, they use the same shaming tactics against men. They promote, all about male disposability in the name of chivalry and all this stuff. Equal rights without equal responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's feminism. You know.
And just that
other feminism.
Yeah, just that simple thing too. Just a simple act that never occurred to me. That simple act. Do I open the door? If I open the door for her, is she going to think that I'm not chivalrous? But if I open the door, is she going to think that I'm saying she can't open the door for herself? It's like yeah, whatever you guys do.
It is. You're in a rock and a hard. You're in a rock and a hard spot. You know. So to me, I think having Ann on this show is going to be a big positive thing for a lot of people. But also, and for women to be able to hear another female up here, they might stop and listen a little harder. And of course, that's not going to be all women. There's other women that's going to come along that may want to attack her. How dare you speak the truth, or how dare you whatever. Okay, because we know how the division is. But if she can reach a few women and get them to back off and think about what they're doing, and if the guys up here that are living this really hard, they're hurting a lot, can hear her side and what she's gone through and what she feels and why she done what she done when she's growing up, it might be able to help you relate to how successful they are with the programming. Because they have really messed up our world.
Just reading a comment here by Joe Skillful. Women don't care about whatever pain men go through with constant rejection because they have no problem getting into relationships and they go on to have a man while us men are forced into solitude. That's awful. It's so sad.
That is true too.
It's true. I mean, women. If I show you my dating profile, I only put it up and it was up like 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I had like all of these men like asking for, and I couldn't do it. I ended up not going. I went into my own solitude because I was overwhelmed, and it felt fake to me. It felt like I couldn't go. I felt like I did just like in a supermarket. It's like no, I this isn't the right way to meet somebody for me anyway. And I do agree with that. Narcissistic personality disorder is growing. And I think, you only have to look at the dating profiles. We're all trying to put on our best face and, show ourselves well, but we're missing out on what the person sounds like. We're missing out on what the person smells like. We're missing out on the little facial expressions and body language and those sorts of things that are important as well. When we just do that, that dating thing.
Even when it comes to things like facial expressions and body language, some people, like myself, for instance, man, I'm autistic or I'm Asperger's. I don't pick up those things very well. But I mean, to me, that's not an excuse as to why I'm pushed out. I mean, because to me, like, okay, I can sit down with somebody and hold a conversation and look them in the eye and get to know them as a person. They can do the same to me and learn to see past a minor disorder like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so I mean.
Wait, so I'm trying to think. Maybe it sounds like expectations. That women's expectations of men are ridiculously like the men are telling me here after money, ATMs and good looks, money, ATM, and that's it, and goodbye.
That's basically it. You have people like Dan and Jen on YouTube that I told you about that was up here pushing dating topics, and Jen encouraged women to write down all their expectations that they wanted a man on paper, and didn't matter how many sheets it was, and to never date or accept being with a guy unless they meant them expectations. Now the women didn't have to. The guy did. The women didn't have to have any expectations. Just the guy has to meet them all for her, and it was all about her. And and I've told people before, don't even go there. If she's got a list of expectations she expects of you as the man, she better damn well, if she wants you to own a house, she better own a house herself. If you gotta have a high-paying job, she better have a high-paying job. And if she don't like that, then she better throw that list away. Because that's not how you create a relationship. That's how you destroy a relationship.
Yeah, because suddenly one thing on the list isn't ticked off, or one thing is, oh, I see, it's a bit suspect. This person doesn't have, black shoes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
My brother, I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me, and he was in an appalling marriage with a very abusive female. And it actually brought he and I close because we had similar experiences. I don't know what that says about our childhood, but we didn't, my parents were pretty good when we were growing up, I think. And I guess we were both, we were compassionate people, I guess. And he was married to a woman, she was a singer, and oh my God, she threw a high chair at his head, she threw a knife at him, and he had 2 daughters. He didn't want to leave him, and he ended up leaving. He gave her the house. She got custody of the daughters, but he had them there most of the time. These are the 2 nieces that I'm talking about who are now 16 and 18, or 21 and 17. That's it. I keep losing their age. They grew up tough watching mum and dad go through what they went through, but they have a very, very narcissistically disordered mother. And he is kind of a very macho kind of guy, and didn't want to talk about what he went through very much because it's just not accepted in the culture generally that men are abused as well, and that men experience violence, and it's almost treated like a joke.
It literally
And what
is.
ends up happening, that's why men have a higher suicide rates, because these problems build up and build up and build up, and they have nowhere to go. Also, figure that domestic violence is about 50-50, right? There's no shelter for battered men,
Yeah.
and men don't get no sympathy, so they've learned that they have nowhere to go. They can't even go to other gods. Other gods wish them for having problems, so they got nowhere to go.
Yeah, they'll get
That's why they
slammed.
end up off themselves.
That's it, because they get slammed by other men. They get told by society that it's supposed to man up. Okay, that's as simple as that. Man up, bend over, take it, and shut your mouth. That's really the message that's given to men.
Yeah, I definitely would. I think Bill and I talked on that before the show. It's like I'm definitely in favor of men's shelters. But then you've got this stigma that society is going to place on men who use those shelters. So it's going to take some time for people to accept the reality that there are just as many men out there getting abused in relationships as women.
Yeah, they're laughed at. Women could literally, in today's society, women could literally rape a man. And if the man went and told somebody, he'd be laughed at.
Right.
All the guys would shame him. The courts would laugh at him, and he'd be a laughing stock.
Right. Well, we were talking about that too, weren't we? About how the legal system is making a lot of money out of a lot of breakups.
Oh, there are. It's a big money laundering racket. Let's keep them all divided. Let's make sure they get together long enough to break up because of social conditioning, and we'll make a lot of money off their breakups.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Amethyst.
Yeah, did you see that comment too, Warren? The last one?
Yeah, it says men are also more successful at committing suicide. Women make more attempts than men do. I would like to address that. I think that here's the thing you got to bear in mind: suicidal people, regardless of gender, is a lot of them. See, a lot of people will automatically say that somebody makes an unsuccessful attempt at suicide, and they're just looking for attention. And there probably are a lot of women out there that do make fake attempts just for attention. But there's also a lot of people out there who are actually suicidal who still have a hard time committing the act. They might make several unsuccessful attempts before they finally strike out at some point. because I've been suicidal myself in the past, and I can tell you it's not easy to do. Even if you think that you definitely want to die, it's not easy to do.
You know,
there's a survival mechanism in your brain that stops you.
I'm with Warren on that because I went through a lot of trauma myself a few years back. People should remember it. I went down the basement where my brother was living. I sat down. I had a bottle of 300 extra strength Tylenol, a bottle of what was it? Aleve. Had a couple hundred of them. I popped well over 100 Tylenol, and you know what happened? I thought about my son and stopped right where I was at.
Yeah.
And then Amethyst says, you're right, women do make fake attempts to kill themselves. And I'm going to address the programming on that one too. How many movies do you see where, it's that, I'm probably going back pre-80s, because they're going for the independent, strong warrior woman thing now. But before that, there was always that, the poor woman who needed to be rescued and...
Yeah.
Well, you want that? All you gotta do is watch a Lifetime movie, and the guy will always be the villain, and the woman will always be the victim. Okay, and the guy will be the bad guy. You know what I mean?
There's the bad guy, and then there's the good guy who comes to rescue her.
Right. And wasn't we talking about this before? Wasn't we talking about this before the show, Ann? Where you were talking about how many groups of women that you saw that are actually bitter and hateful to men?
Sorry, say that again?
Women who hate men. Wasn't we
Women
talking
who hate
about?
men, yes. I have encountered female friends along my ways, and many no longer friends, who the only bond was, the rotten man, the horrible man, and they get together. And when you're going through a breakup or something, it's good to be able to tell your story, and it's good to have female company and get your story validated. But there comes a point when they're almost inciting you into like revenge. Well, he did this, so we're gonna go and smash his car, or we're gonna. And it's like, no, that's. And then that's the only bond of friendship I have with these women. These are not friends anyway. I don't know how it is. So I'm sure guys have a similar. I'm not sure, but. And I'm just generalizing again, that's just based on my own experience, and that's only some women. I know other women that have genuinely gone through hard times. Yeah. And I can tell you, one of the relationships I was in, the guy had debt. He had 2 sons, and he had a debt, for 2 credit. He'd given his son his credit card, and they ran it up. So he had this huge debt, and he was living in a trailer and blah, blah, blah. And I moved in. We moved in for about 2 years together, and I worked 3 jobs and paid off his debts. And not long after the debts were paid off, he was gone. So, yeah. So, it works the other way sometimes, too. I've never been a wealthy person, and I've never gone for wealthy men, and I've never judged someone by how much money they make. I was raised to think that people were more important than things, so I'm sort of grateful for that foundation. But that came from my family.
That's it. Well, there are women like that. You have women out there that are gold diggers, and all they care about is what the guy makes.
Yeah.
But you also have women out there that are not gold diggers. They don't care what the guy has. Okay, so you can't label the gold digging women to, oh, that's all women. That's not all women.
Yeah.
It's no different than the guy that.
And I agree with what you said.
Well, I was just going to say it's no different than the man. The man that abuses the woman, that's not every single man. The problem society has is you want to label all genders, and it doesn't apply to everybody. If you got a bad apple in the box of the guys, that don't mean every guy would be that way, and it's the same with the women. But go ahead, Warren.
Well, I was going to say about the people first, thing second. I agree with that. But here's the thing. if you look at some cultures, like right now, like are a good shining example of this. Like if you look at, like, say for example, Southeast Asia, where people are desperately poor out there, right? And you think that would bring families closer together, but you got parents out there selling their own children into sex slavery, in order to get out of poverty, in order to have nice things. To me, that's disgusting. That's revolting. I mean, okay, maybe I'm not dealing with their level of poverty, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I'm being realistic here. I mean, even if I was dealing with that kind of level of poverty, that doesn't excuse that kind of behavior.
I agree with you on that too, and I've never been into that level of poverty, so I don't know. And if this country keeps, Australia and the West keep going the way we're going, maybe we get that taste of that. But I hope not. But I remember in Bali, in Indonesia, you get mobbed. You get mobbed by people trying to sell you stuff. Because the automatic thing is that because you're a Westerner, you've got lots of money. That's just an automatic. That's what they. And of course, we do. Comparatively, we do have more money, but we're not all as wealthy as they are led to believe in the East either. But yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, the sex trafficking. Yeah, selling your kids to get a bag of rice. Yeah, it's a reality.
That's inexcusable because I look at it like this way, man, too. Even if the government outlaws it, you can still do it illegally. Like, look, anybody can go out there and go fishing or go hunt and for a bill if it came down to it.
And
there's
you just got me thinking about
even if the government outlawed it, do it illegally. But it's better than selling your fucking kids in the goddamn. That's not,
Yeah, let her answer. Let her answer you, Juan.
People want to generally think that most people have such strong family bonds, and poverty tests that, man. And what you find out a lot of the times, man, is a lot of these bonds, these blood bonds, are about as thin as water, man. Some people are real family members and really look out for their family. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
And blood doesn't necessarily mean that somebody can be trusted. So, really, when you think about it, blood doesn't necessarily define family.
Okay, go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, go ahead.
Bill, Anon Blue is asking your question. It's directed to you.
Yeah, it says, Anon Blue, he says, I want a woman to take care of me for life or she goes to prison. No, that one Anon Blue, that was...
No, I'm Blue.
Listen.
Bill might see it easier. Maybe put in your question capital letters. Bill might see it easier. Okay, well, the question was about accelerating the collapse of society. I think that's what he's talking about. And accelerating the collapse of society, I think, would wake a whole lot of people up. But it's not going to fix the problem unless people are willing to change themselves and start treating people the way they want to be treated themselves. There's no bias being said here. That applies to women and men both. Both genders have to start looking at each other as human beings with emotions and feelings and wants and needs and respect each other's feelings and stop playing the damn game of running each other over and hurting other people. Game has never belonged in the dating arena, but what do you hear from everyone all around you? You gotta have game to get a date. What is game? Lies and manipulation.
I'm going to just recap on something you said, Warren, about the East and the poverty and how that, and the disintegration of the family or disintegration of values that come with that. I wonder if that's by design, because then you've got, a population of Westerners who are all feeling all lonely, right? And so then you've got a whole bunch of people who are willing to sell off their daughters for a bag of rice or desperate to get out of the situation you're in. And it makes you wonder.
It's not just Westerners that are going through TFL. Men all over the globe are going through TFL.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. So this is, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, though, because you think about a lot of these sex workers, these wealthy men, which are mostly Westerners a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them were guys that probably were pushed out, but not all guys that are pushed out are going to do shit like that. There's a lot of the probably war guys that are pushed out are just pervs. But a lot of these people are Westerners that go to these sex tourist places out there in Southeast Asia. I can't deny that, 'cause that's the truth.
Yeah.
But so you might have something there.
So I mean,
At the same time, it's their own people. They're selling their own children off the damn street, so they're implicit too. So
right.
there's no blame to go around like everything. If I want to, look at situations, okay, we're gonna blame them, but it's not always that simple. I
mean, yeah. And my thing too is like, where did perversion come from? Where did we become a sexually deviant, or sections of our culture become so sexually deviant anyway? What led to that? What led to, someone getting...
Let me tell you what led to it. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what led to it. One, they replaced love with lust, right? And Western culture being a springboard for the rest of the world, right? In America particularly, okay? They flooded the market with sex, and then on top of that, you created this growing pocket of men who were being pushed out.
Well, Warren, you also have something else that was before your time. Back in the 50s, we had a hippie culture. In the hippie culture, they promoted open and free sex. And if you go back to the sexual revolution, when they were promoting open and free sex, you had orgies going on during that culture.
Yeah.
That was the start of bringing sex into society and breaking down the morals and destroying people morally and spiritually. And that was the start back then. At least here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's a Hegelian dialectic around that too, because you got the Hugh Hefner on one side, and then you got the sort of Puritan, Protestant church ethic morality, which is kind of very rigid on the other, so yeah. It traps
two extremes are one of them's way too lax about the other's way too militant about it.
Yeah, but it still is the focus. Sex is the focus, yeah.
I don't have a problem with sex and its proper boundaries. It shouldn't be made public like in society. Sex and its proper boundaries between a man and a woman, or between two people who love one another, who care about one another, in the privacy of their own bedroom. It's fine. There's not a problem. Even if it's for pleasure, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's natural. I don't have an issue with that. But I have an issue when they start teaching it to our kids and stuff at such a young age. They plaster it all over everywhere you look, and I mean, it became the backbone of our society. It shouldn't be that.
Right. I'm just so distracted by this last comment. What I really hate about women, especially white women, is they flirt with you. In my case, I'm in my early 20s, and when they flirt back, they say, "No, you're too young. I need somebody older." They might be actually doing you a favor there. That's telling you that they're looking for an age-appropriate sort of boundary around their sex life. So, but you still got the compliment.
I have a theory too, and maybe you can enlighten me on this since you are a woman. I don't know what your experience with this is, but I'm curious about this. They say too, part of the reason why some women are going for older men, I'm sure a lot of it's because a lot of them are gold diggers, but at the same time, we live in a society where there's a major father crisis. A lot of women that grow up without a daddy figure, they're looking for some guy to be that daddy figure.
Right. Definitely a father figure replacement. I mean, and that I think some study I read somewhere along the line, but who knows if that studies, I'm cynical about studies anymore too. But they were saying that the male in her life, the first male is the father, and that will be like the imprint of the kind of male character that you would look for in your partner later in life. But in my case, I can't really say that that's true because that one guy was very violent. My father was definitely not a violent man. I did choose that particular Native American that I was with was an elder in his tribe. He was a pipe carrier and he was 20 years older than me. And I very consciously thought he will be fine because he's 20 years old and he'll be more settled. He won't have all of these, he will be, and he's going to, I went with that whole romantic fences with walls, oh, he's an elder. But it was completely the opposite experience. So, yeah. I'm trying to. My situation is different because I made really bad choices, and I'm trying for where I'm at. I'm trying to figure out what the programming, all the different imprinting and programming that has played a part in me making those choices, and try to be more conscious and definitely less hurtful. Now I'm reading, the amount of hurt that this kind of rejection causes. To be really conscious of my interactions with men, but I'm trying to understand the male point of view on this. Like there's a lot of mistrust towards us, towards women, for good reason, looks like. Yeah, and I think the narcissistic thing, it really comes down to that.
I mean, there's a lot of mental illness being promoted through our society. A lot of it because of propaganda. A lot of it is environmental because our environment is controlled through our institutions, through the people who run our institutions financially, and they use it to manipulate people and control people. And so, that's why you hear people say all the time, "Oh, they're a product of their environment." Well, you choose to some extent whether or not you're a product of your environment. If you choose to allow a hardship to be an excuse to knowingly do something wrong, then you're choosing to do that. I'm not saying that you are, but I'm saying for people out there. But yeah, we live in a society, and the problem with it is part of the big pharma and stuff like this. Like, look, they're out here giving people fake diagnoses and shit like that in order, and trash can diagnoses, just so they can sell pills to them. There's another big agenda behind that. But I mean, the real disorders that are being in society want to go unnoticed and undiagnosed because people think it is normal. We're seeing like shades of Tsar Russia here, shades of USSR, where if you disagree with the status quo, you're considered mentally insane. That's where it's moving towards.
Yeah, and they want to change those the mental health some of the mental health guidelines or legislations now too. So that's kind of scary because especially when it's coming in with censorship.
Well, that's it. Yeah. You can't trust big pharma. That's about money. You can't even trust your hospitals or doctors. I wouldn't trust them with the life of my life. Put it on it. Yes, they're there and they're supposed to be helping us to save our lives. And yes, they do some good, but they're programmed like everybody else. They're not taught the truth when they go to school and the college. They're taught what they're allowed to be knowing. That's it.
Yeah.
And then they push eugenics. Yeah. The doctors will kill you. You get cancer, you find out real quick. You get cancer, you're better off to go with alternative solutions. I wouldn't even go that way, but that's off topic. That's for another show.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. My brain's trying to go to solutions already, and these are not. This is just such an ingrained thing.
It is. I've been looking for solutions myself for a long time, and I think it's great having Ann as part of the show. I really do.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here.
And I'm hoping that eventually more women will hear Ann as we do the shows, think about what she's saying, and want to anticipate in this show. And for the guys in this show, you need to welcome the women aboard that are willing to come into this show. This is not going to be about arguing or fighting. We need to cut through the programming and division, because if we can't cut through it and start somewhere, we can never fix it.
I will say this. We should definitely allow honest women in, but you do have to be on the lookout for the chameleons, because they've already recommended a lot of movement trying to deal with NATO and everything else. Now, at the same time, there are also male chameleons. There are also infiltrated government agents that get infiltrated the show. So, I mean, you got to be worried for that, too. But, not making it entirely a gender thing.
Well, no, that's the thing. The thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell people right up to understand the intent behind this is needed to happen for a long time now. Is to try to reach both genders and try to get both genders to understand on common ground what the programming's done to them, for them, how it's destroying their own life, so that hopefully we can eventually turn some of that programming around. That in the long run is going to help men and women both. I think I can guarantee you, Ann don't like to see all this hurt that's been laid on men. No more than I like seeing it. But we have to find a spot to start fighting back and to try to turn the programming around, because if we don't start somewhere, you get nowhere. This can never always be just for men to come and whine. They were looking for solutions. To find solutions, we have to get both genders involved, because this is affecting both genders.
I've always done that. I've always done. I call men out too. I don't call men out on things that society expects me to call them out for, because they expect me to go on this whole the patriarchy propaganda or whatnot. But I hold men at fault. Collectively, there are isolated situations where there are actual rapes and things like that, and they're wrong for that. But collectively, on the grand scale, I generally hold men more accountable for enabling this attack against men, for men turning against their fellow man. In order to, a lot of this gynocentrism and all this stuff, man.
Well, I'm with you on that one.
It wouldn't be possible if it weren't for men enabling it.
Well, I'm with you on that one, for the fact that when the TFLer says they're living TFL because of the female, that would be a correct answer. But what Warren is talking about, I have to stand with him on, because for one, the programming's the reason the women go the way they go, just like men do. For two, because men have had all the responsibility laid on them, and the women do the choosing. The guy has to do all the work of the impressing. The woman's can't possibly pick every guy that she meets. And so men have got so desperate, as this is a sport, an arena, a competition, that we don't care who we dump on. We'll throw our best friend, male friend, under the bus just to get to put our genitals inside some woman and throw her away. Meanwhile, you dump all over your best friend and throw him under the bus because you think it's all a game. The more women you're with, that makes you a better man and more of a man, and it doesn't make you more of a man. It means you're dumber, because you've fallen for the propaganda and you're treating other people the exact way you'd never want to be done yourself.
Yeah,
I can give you an example of, and you guys can tell me if you think this was insensitive. And to Toronto, you said, wasn't that discrimination? To your question, I would suggest that, depending on what the communication you had with her was, that she was possibly being quite insensitive to you and your situation. But I'll tell you what I did. The very last date I went on, I was going out with this guy, and he'd obviously dated a lot of hookers, and he was very much into pornography, and he wanted me to, dress up, and I can do that. I can do the star jumps, and we can all do that and put makeup on and blah, blah. But I just sort of thought, no, I want to be real. I want to be who I am. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be participate in this fantasy that he has in his head, and I can't feed these expectations he's got because I will never be enough. And I tried very hard to tell him that. I did tell him, and I also said that I probably wasn't the right partner for him because it sounded like he needed someone flashy. He needed someone who was into that same kind of groove, that same kind of stuff he was into, and I wasn't. But I said we could still be friends, but he did not take it well. He did not take that well at all, and I did not mean it as a rejection, like of him as a human being. I just really didn't. I didn't have that one part, which is pretty important, the sex part. I didn't have that in common with him, and what he was looking for, I could never fulfill. Um, and I was trying to be honest about it. So was that okay, or was that too much of a rejection? Do you think?
I wouldn't call it too much of a
I
rejection.
mean, I don't know. I wasn't there.
You know, you
I
gotta.
mean, nobody's obligated to be with anybody, but I mean, I mean, everybody has a right to be with who they want to be with. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the individual situation. I don't know enough about.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess what I'm saying too is that and women are not very good at it because we don't get rejected very much. Like in terms of like the dating thing, like you say, it's like we're getting all kinds of people chasing us and all of that. So that gives us this false idea that we're better than we are. Um, but and also indicates just how many lonely men there probably are out there as well, which is sad. But it's
That I noticed too. I mean, a lot of women. Look, again, I'm not trying to make it all about sex. Our society's made it all
Sure.
about sex. I'm just saying, a lot of women gravely overestimate what their sexual market value is, and that's why you see women who are like, let's say maybe a 3 who think they're like a 7, and they'll turn down guys who are like 5s and 6 who are, you know what I'm saying? They're like, you pick a guy, like, guys have to date down. I mean.
And here's the thing though, I can be with a number 10 looking guy, but if he's not, or me, it doesn't matter what the person looks like. If the person's not going to be there by your side when you're sick, I had a friend whose son had Parkinson's disease. He was married and they had a child. When he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, no, it was multiple sclerosis. When he got diagnosed, she left him 2 weeks later, and she told him it was not what she signed up for. And so he had to go and live with his mum. He lost the house. He did get custody of the child because he didn't want that responsibility. And so the grandmother is now looking after the child, and it just boggles my mind. I'm like, but that is marriage. It's sickness and in health. That's what it says. Isn't that the...
Yes. Yes, and if you really love somebody, you would.
They don't understand what a relationship is because you got kids having kids, man. They don't understand that if you really care about somebody, you're by their side through thick or thin, And to be honest with you, I know there are guys that will run out on women like that too. But generally speaking, from what I've seen, there are guys that will stay by their woman. It's more likely that a woman's going to run out on their man if he gets fucked up like that because she's been hit with so many more options than he is.
Well, unfortunately, that's true. And the sad thing about that, even with that being true, what Warren just said, is the fact that this woman married him. The vows was there. When he got diagnosed with that, by her doing that, she only proved one thing. She never loved him to begin with.
But here's my thing: what kind of programming had she been given to think that marriage is a disposable thing? You just throw it away.
The programming.
That's what blew my mind. Is
the programming still goes back? She was looking for the provider. The provider. When he got that, he's no longer the provider. How dare you? This means you're not going to be able to provide for me and you're going to die young. So, and I'm going to have to go through, I'm not going through it standing by you with that. I want somebody that's going to go out there and be my ATM.
Yeah, that someone just wrote a thing here. Sorry, Bill, that says so his dad said he criticised a celebrity who perceived as scrawny and wimpy for a celebrity who was more athletic and muscular. And see, that's another thing. I don't prescribe to social pornography anymore either. And I think celebrity gossip is nothing more than social pornography. You know, we've been somehow fed this idea somewhere way back that these people are stars and idols. They're just human beings. Some of them are actors. Some of them sing a song really nice. And that's it. That's it. That's all they do. Why are we so obsessed with who they marry and what they marry and who they screw? And it's like, what?
Yep.
And that's to me part of the programming is that we are looking to these little fake leaders for our morality or our guideline on how to live lives. And
we are. And because we look at
that's got to go. That's over with, surely.
The programming is it right there. I mean, what is that? AM3. Okay, right there said again, social programming led to the divorce. And that's really correct, yes. And that would be a correct answer.
Yeah.
See,
that's why it's important to be able to see through the program.
I remember back when I was a kid. I'm only 38 years old, man. Back in the early to mid 80s. I'm not saying you didn't have some people that were already divorced, and you did, but divorce wasn't nearly as big as it. Like it started taking off like around the late 80s, early 90s. That's when you started seeing families break up and like a high divorce rate and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I coincide with a lot of feminism and things like that, and I've noticed at that time too, TFL got a lot worse because at that time I was in middle school. Okay. Prior, like in the early 90s, like around 90, 91, I had several girls my age who were interested in me. At that time, I wasn't interested in them for other reasons. I had other things going on. I was still young, right? I figured I'd have the rest of my life to be able to, flirt with women and be able to be with women and whatnot. So I won't focus on it at that time. Well, that was around 1990, 91. Well, by 93, 94, almost overnight, I was completely cut off from them. I was full blown TFL.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I mean, I never had no explanation for it. I mean, at that time, I didn't understand what was going on. I just thought I was constantly getting rejected. And if I tried to explain to everybody, they'd shame me for even talking about it.
Exactly.
Like, well,
that's exactly it. What happened to Warren happens to so many men. And when they try to tell people what's going on and the constant rejection, the first thing that happens is they're blamed for it. By everybody around them. They're shamed and blamed.
Here's the thing too. I think in our culture, if you're single, you're an oddity for a start. Like I said, my situation's choice really, although because I made bad choices. So I'm trying to learn how to make good choices now. So I need to just regroup. But that loneliness is scary because you're vulnerable. When you're lonely and someone shows you any kind of interest or affection, you can so easily fall into a relationship and then find out it's toxic and you're trapped. And because you're thinking, oh, do I stay in this really bad situation or do I go back being lonely? It's like, I can tell you from experience, it's better to be lonely, though.
Oh, yeah, there have been times. I had my first relationship at the age of 24, and it lasted like maybe a couple of months. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, man. I mean, sometimes, you can even be in a relationship and there's so much drama, you're thinking, man, why am I even doing this? I mean, as a TFL guy who's lived this lifestyle myself, when you deal with when you eventually put up with enough drama, you'll be asking yourself, man, why am I even doing this? It was easier being TFL.
Right.
Nowadays, I actually tell a lot of guys that are TFL, and they don't understand it, but I tell them you're better off to be alone. Nobody knows what they're doing. They don't know what love is. They love drama. And if you want drama and a miserable life, Just hurry up and get hooked up.
And that's the thing,
That's
though,
kind
is
of what I'm
that
at now,
romance
man. I
is
mean,
supposed to be drama, isn't it? Like, that's what we've been taught, because how many movies do you see with people who are just sitting down having breakfast and a loaf of bread or something? I gotta go to the, I gotta
and
go
that's
to
kind
the
of where I'm at
school.
now. Like, I'm not looking for a relationship now. Like, I'm kind of in a sense MGTOW because I don't. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible for me that I could get with a woman, but it's not very likely. Because I'm at the point right now where I'm kind of on the defense of. And like, look, here's the thing about it. You know, you can only get knocked down so many times before eventually, well, maybe you wise up. You're not going to keep trying to crawl the ladder anymore because you already know you're going to keep getting pushed down. You can only be pushed down so many times. I'm at the point now, you know, especially looking at all the risk out there and how the risks are starting to outweigh the rewards in a lot of scenarios. You know, as a man, even if you do, quote, beat the odds, what's the prize? I mean, it's constant drama and being blamed for everything and having the laws work against you and everything else. You know, at this point, man, it's like I'm fine being alone. You know, my sex drive's dying down a lot more now, so I'm not as full of hormones and rage as I was when I was younger. I'm not saying it's all about sex, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah, I feel you. Totally feel you. For me, I shut down. I talk a good game. I sound very gregarious. I realize that, but I pretty much shut down for the last couple of years. And um, now I've been finishing. I finished up college. I got a new job. I'm doing all of that, and I'm paying back a loan, all of those things. But I'm not good. I know that with my relationship history and my finances and everything, that I'm not what you would call good on the market either. So, and I just don't want to. I don't even know if I want to put myself through that anymore. I just,
you know,
I
the great
get
thing about
lonely. I
solitude
do
is you
get
can invest in
lonely.
yourself.
Yeah, I do get lonely, but I don't. Because a lot of my friends, are not awake as well, and so that increases my sense of isolation. You get the tinfoil hat, and you get dismissed and written off as a conspiracy theorist and everything else. So that doesn't help.
I'm
That's
looking
the
at
great
what.
thing about
Hold on.
solitude is you don't have to worry about what other people think of you, and you can live for yourself, and you can devote your energy and time into what makes you happy instead of having to compromise for someone else.
This is true. This is true, and I can eat what I want.
Yes, I was looking at what
Yeah.
Jay Skillful was talking about, and he's talking with here somebody, and he says in the day's concept, okay, the friend zone don't exist, and he tries to debate with me that the friend zone always existed. No, the friend zone didn't always exist. The friend zone is programming that unfortunately proves the female don't know what she's talking about, let alone doing. She's going by programming.
The friend zone became a thing. The friend zone became a thing, I believe, sometime in the '90s, man, or maybe even the early 2000s. It went around back in the '80s.
No, the friend zone's not always been here. The friend zone don't even belong here.
I've never heard anybody use the word friend zone back in the '80s.
No, and it don't even belong here. But it's here because people have been programmed.
Yeah.
So I know what he's talking about, and it's sad. It just shows how bad our society really is. People have been so brainwashed.
Yeah, and even when you do get in a relationship too, then there's all of that social. There's a kind of pressure, like women's magazines are terrible. Does he do this for you? Are you doing that? How to please, your man in bed while making a cafe latte and having multiple orgasms? It's like
it's all about how to manipulate men, right? That's what
right,
put in magazines for women. It's all about manipulating men.
Mm-hmm. Well, manipulate men, and then they get a double message. You get like, here is a decadent chocolate cheesecake recipe just for you, and then the next page is a diet article. So it's like, wait a minute, that's it.
90 seconds.
So you get 400-pound overweight women that are dating Chad Thundercock and then throwing him under the bus because he's not good enough for them.
So basically, we're both getting taught how to manipulate each other. Really?
That's really what it is. You're getting taught to lie and manipulate. to play the
And
game.
women has got the power because we've got the legal power behind us now, and the you know, feminist movement and all of these.
60 seconds.
That's it. Well, the radio show part's about over, Warren. We're still live up on YouTube, and I'm going to leave it up to Ann if she wants to carry on for another few minutes.
Yes, I can. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's chatting, because I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn from you. So
Okay,
thank you.
Then we will carry on the show for another few minutes to when Ann decides or what have you. But Warren won't be here because he's called in on Blog Talk, and we're down to the last few seconds. So, Warren, you're welcome to come in under the chat if you want to continue to listen and type what you have to say. That's up to you.
I will, man, but not probably not tonight because I got other things I got to do. Maybe next week.
That's
Hey,
fine.
Warren.
10 seconds.
I'm going to ruin your program. You got a friend.
That's cool.
Okay, Warren. You have a good one.
All right, later. All right, later.
All right.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Wow, that's amazing, Bill. That's an eye-opener for sure.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Well, so you're still live. We're still live on YouTube.
Yeah, see, I know. And I'm just, there's so many people hurting. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amethyst, for saying that. Thank you, everyone. Wow.
You know, it's just, it's sad what you're seeing, but this has been needing to happen for a long time, and I'm actually very, very proud of Ann for being here.
Yeah.
I really am. You know, she's going to become part of this show, and you guys out there, I think you can greatly respect the fact that she's going to be becoming part of the show in a situation that, and she's getting her eyes open to a lot what she didn't know. You know, with all this stuff she already knows, she's getting an eye opener. But at the same time, it's a good eye opener in the long run because she can reach out and probably help some of these guys and women alike to understand where they're putting themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I got some female friends I'll be having a bit of a chat with, that's for sure. So,
you know, and that's
women could change. Wow, you're right. You're right. We got her. This has all got to change. Angry grandpa.
Angry grandpa. It tells you like it is Bill. Okay, well, maybe I'm an angry grandpa. I never thought of it that way. I keep wanting to tell myself that I'm not old. I've been telling myself that every time I have a birthday, I used to say I go back a year, but the numbers just don't add up. And I don't want to turn them around because then I'll really be old. So I decided rather than turn them around, I just add it together. I get to start all over if I add it together, you know, because then I'll be 12.
You can go trans age now. Age fluidity. You can be like any age you want, apparently.
That might as well. I mean, how many genders do we have? What is that, 51 or 52
I think
flavors?
there's about 5 now, isn't there?
Well, last time I heard there was 50-something.
Oh, my God.
I know, that's what I said. And I said, now hold on, it don't go past 2. And if it does, it's only because it's a morphodite born with both sex organs. And that's very rare. So, okay, we'll throw it in the very, very rare one and say there's 3. But anything past that, you've lost your mind.
Thank you, George Skillful. George Skillful. Thank you. Yeah. Good luck, guys out there.
That guy's been here for a long time. He can tell you some stories. There was a show back, I forget, a few weeks ago where somebody said something, and Joyce Skillful came up and named some names of people who used to attack me that were females. And that just proves right there.
I remember, because I was watching for a little while, and I remember you talking about was it dominatrix or something?
Yeah, there was Sabrina 13, there was Diana Boston, Christina Peace. There's been a few of them. I used to call Sarah and Karina Dippity Do and Dippity A.
Wow.
I've had my share, you know. But I didn't want the attack by the women. I wanted the women to try to understand the programming, to understand where they were going. Now, Sarah and Karina was a lost cause because they were melting feminists. And they were in their 20s. So you're in your 20s and you're a feminist already. That's a lost cause.
Yeah, that's. Hey, it's a different world now. It's a different world for the youth now.
It is, you know.
How are they going to date? How are they going to, like, what's.
Well, you know what? The sad thing is there's so many guys that are alone. They're all over the world, because I've met people all over the world. There's so many men that are alone and can't get nobody because the way society's been rigged. The women don't have the issue. They have the issue of they're with somebody and somebody won't leave them alone and keeps hitting on them. That's the issue the woman has. The guy has the issue of never having nobody, which causes him to become angry and bitter. And I can't blame him. I mean, you know, when you get rejected, rejection hurts. And I've watched women be rejected before, and they'll flip out. They lose their shit because the rejection hurts. But they won't.
We don't get that level of rejection as much as the men. So we're not used to it.
Exactly. But yet the men at the same time are receiving such a high level of rejection. And for some guys, I really feel for them, you know. They get 17, 18, you know, and they've already started, the hormones kicked in at, what, 13? Well, by the time they're 16 in school, everybody's running around them and the girls are chasing the popular guys and so on and so on. But then they hit 18, 19, and they move into society and they continue to be rejected. And now they're 30. Now they're 35. And I've even met a guy that's now 40, you know. And, you know, and then you got people like George Sedini. Now he's 49, refuses to turn 50 and still be alone and rejected. And the sad thing is this happens, men will kill themselves. Sometimes these men might flip out and they're going to blame the opposite gender, thanks to society. They walk in a gym like George Sedini did and kill innocent women and then off themselves.
Yeah.
You know, just because of this. But these guys, I mean, you know, you got to really think hard. How would the woman handle it if she had to see 16, 17, 18, still alone, still rejected, see 19, 20 and get clear up to 30, still be rejected. She wants to have a family, wants to have a kid, still rejected. Sorry.
Wow.
You know, how would she handle that? You know, can you think what that would actually do to you?
Yeah, I think you and I were talking about this. I was remembering in my youth, you and I are about the same bit vintage here. And I remember like at the school they would have like dances. They would have like these, you know, I went to all girls school and there was an all boys school, and so they would organise these dances for us. And they were great. And I remember it was, you know, the progressive dancing where you dance and then you go to the next part and you dance, but it stimulated conversation. It didn't, you know, we weren't freaked out by boys weren't freaked out by girls, and it was just I don't know, it seemed more civilized somehow, like a civilized way to meet somebody, you know. And we don't do that now. We got, you know, we don't have a waltz, we have a twerk, you know. So there's all kinds of different acting out and behaviours on a dance floor that, you know, we're just not part of that socialising that I think was a little healthier, but that's just me. Yeah.
Okay, the fact that he is dead now doesn't change my opinion of him. I mean, just because he's deceased, I'm supposed to like the guy now. Oh, I'm not sure what guy he's talking about there, but
he's referring to somebody, I think, who used to stalk you, who gave bad advice from the sounds of it. Is that right, George Skill?
maybe he's talking about Player Supreme.
Speak to the late Player Supreme.
He's talking about Player Supreme. Player Supreme was a guy who was up on YouTube who became big.
Oh, okay.
And he preached the game. He pushed the philosophy of the game. If you want to get a woman in your life, the game. Everything's a game. Him and I had controversy over the years, and I went back and forth. He attacked me a few times. I attacked back. Then I gave him the respect, and I even had him on the TFL radio show one night. And I had to give him my word that nobody would attack him. For him to come on, okay? So everybody gave their word, and I kept their mouth shut and didn't attack him. He came on the show. And then I discovered the minute you brought up anything political, the root cause, he became scared and nervous. He wouldn't touch the actual root cause for the life of him. And I think that's because he was scared of, he knew it was the truth, but he didn't want to piss off the government.
Right.
He didn't want to piss off the powers to be, so he became scared.
Yeah.
But here a couple months ago, Player Supreme passed away.
Right. I know Blue just came up with a good suggestion. We should do what we're doing and form groups. Yeah, that is definitely something. If we can get more women interested, like to have this conversation, at least we can learn to communicate with one another, get that basic down.
Well, that would be a big plus because that's been needed for so long, and that's what I would hope for. I would hope with Ann being here every Monday night, that eventually other women will come along, and that we can get groups, we can get discussions going that'll actually enlighten the women and the men both.
Yep.
Because that could help a lot of people. And that's the idea behind this, is helping people. And helping to stop the programming, because if you can recognize the programming at a younger age, then maybe for the females, they will change their mind on the choices they're making.
Yeah.
And won't go with the programming, which will give them a better life themselves. And it'll also help a lot of men, because it's not right for so many men to be pushed out and to have so many women chasing the same type of guy.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's no guarantees, because this programming has been going on for longer than I've been alive. Okay.
I'm going to have to research the hell out of this now. And that's how I am. I'm going to have to get you to give me some links though, so I save me a bit of time before I go wandering down the wrong rabbit hole.
I will push for as much as I can find that hasn't been scrubbed, and I'm sure Jerry will help you too when it comes to this, because Jerry's really good at researching, and I'll keep researching. Some of the stuff that I did before and the stuff I brought before, I can't even find now. They've been scrubbing the heck out of the net. I did find some good stuff from Paul Elam when he was with MRA. Okay? But there's a lot of good stuff that I want to be able to get to you. So,
All right, yeah, definitely, because I'm getting my eyes open to you. This is awful. This is awful to have so many lonely people like this.
Well, it's been going on a long time, but see, the problem is my heart, I care. And, and as I can see, this is why, I think it's so great, because you have a caring heart.
Yeah.
And you want what's right. And you don't want to see all these men this way no more than I do.
No,
I don't want to see women hurt, but I don't want to see men hurt. So.
Yeah, it's just like, and there's all kinds of cliches, they say there's one for a person for everyone, and then they say there's where even grass can grow through concrete, and all those cliches. But I'm in the same boat. I'm lonely, but my loneliness was a choice. So, yeah, this is awful. This is awful.
Nice guys are so damn demanding. Player Supreme.
He said that?
Player Supreme. He's making a quote for Player Supreme. Yeah, he's making quotes from Player Supreme.
Supreme. Okay, I'm going to research that one.
Oh,
too.
you can go on YouTube and just type in Player Supreme on free time, and you'll
Yeah.
find him. He's still all over. He's just not alive no more to do anymore.
Oh, okay.
You'll find him, and then you can listen to some of his stuff, and you go, "Oh shit!"
Right.
You know, it's like putting Dan and Jen in. I don't think you'll find them anymore. But if you was to find them still on YouTube doing their thing, then you would discover what I'm talking about real quick. It might make you mad. You
It's
might
like,
would have
you know,
just got
there's
pissed
a
off
lot
at
of
her.
people that I know that are players, like men and women, right? And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't, to me, just to me, it doesn't look like a happy life to me. It's like, yeah, you got, it's just like, to me, it's like another drug, you know, going from person to person, and you're never, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I like that. Jayful Skillful says, been spending most of his life living in a white knight paradise.
Oh,
Which is sad.
Saber hope.
Well, you know, you've heard of, and
Saber hope syndrome.
you've heard of pussy whip men.
Yes, I have.
I don't call them pussy whip men. I call them vaginas. Because there's vaginas, because there's nothing manly about their behavior. So I'm not gonna call him a pussy whip man because you know, he's just not. He's a vagina. Because there's just nothing manly about his behavior. He's a disgrace to every other guy. You know, and that's the guy that won't stand up to the female, regardless
Because
of how wrong she is, because he's frightened to.
Yeah.
So therefore, he won't, and he'll bend over and do everything she says. Doesn't matter how wrong it is, how much wrong or how much he's destroying her own family.
Yeah.
He's still gonna bend over and cover for her and cover for her, and he won't stand up to her regardless of what. And I don't call that a man. That's a pussy. That's a vagina.
That's the feminization of our culture, then, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah,
That's a whole different one right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna
Yes.
get up and go to work.
Yes, she does,
I'm
guys.
in the slave economy.
Yes. But we'll be back here Monday night next week.
All right.
She'll be back then, okay?
Yes, I certainly will. Truly, thank you very, very much, because this has opened my eyes. This has just opened my eyes.
And between now and then, I'll be up here on Thursday night with Warren, and I'll be back up Sunday night with Jerry. Just
All right.
as you know. And then Monday night, we'll be back up here with Ann. So I guess, guys, with that being said, we're going to end the show. Thanks for being here, and you all have a good night.